Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a Saturnine, Charles Coulombe.
Saturnine, as in depressed, down,
Gloomy.
gloomy. You really think so?
I mean, right now, you're a little under the weather,
I am a little under the weather, and tired, as well as a little sick. But the worst of it isn't being sick. The worst of it is that it's not COVID. I know because I got tested. Well, I'm waiting for the next COVID party.
Yeah, COVID party. What are you talking about?
Well, here in Austria and in other places where they either have or are talking about enforced vaccinations, or in places where you basically aren't allowed to live unless you're vaccinated. But you can have a life if you've had the disease within 6 months. Now, especially with the rise of Omicron, people are having these COVID parties. Somebody gets COVID, it calls everybody they know, and they just come over and they eat, and they drink, and they hang out, and then they go off, hoping that they've caught the disease. It's very huggy. Europeans tend to be huggy anyway, but even more so when they're trying to catch COVID. And off they go. But see, the thing is that this is Omicron. See, this is girly COVID. I mean, the COVID I had back in May, that was tough stuff. I mean, you got that. You didn't know if you were going to live or not. It was macho COVID, It was Chad COVID to Omicron's virgin COVID. It's true.
Chad COVID.
Chad COVID and virgin COVID. So they have all these little girly COVID parties. To get girly COVID. And see, what's really annoying, it's not annoying objectively, but subjectively, what's annoying is that girly COVID has chased the macho stuff right out. So now people just aren't getting manly COVID anymore. I mean, look, the lady that gave me COVID died of it. It was pretty bad. But that was way back in May of last year. Now we've got this little, yes, I'm COVID and I can shut you down. You can wear a mask, you can be vaccinated, and you can't stop me. Well, all right, that sounds pretty bad, little Miss COVID. I can't stop you, but will you kill me? Well, no. Well, will you get me very sick? Well, I don't really tend to go to the lungs. I don't like to go down to those places. They're very dark and disgusting. I just stay up, the throat and the nose, close to the light. I don't like going down there. Yeah, well, that's because you're girly. Real manly COVID goes down into the lungs and the heart. It does its best to kill the fellow.
That's gosh.
What? As a COVID survivor, I can tell you that it's no fun. It really isn't when you've got the manly stuff. But the girly stuff still has the world shut down. And the funny thing is, Zeta and Omega will probably be far easier to catch. Nothing will stop them. And you won't even know you've got them. The question is, will it allow our masters to let us breathe again? This hit me very hard today. You'll often hear people of various sorts yapping about taking back their power and, the intersections of power and power. Yeah, well, I think we've seen over the past 2 years just how much power there is.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I never, ever, ever want to hear about that again. There's a lot of stuff I'm sick of in terms of hearing it. I don't want to hear about structures of power. as if that meant something. We all live under structures of power. Eat it. I mean, that's like saying, "Oh, it's so terrible. I have to eat. I'm imprisoned by structures of nutrition. Why can't I just live my life without food?" Well, because you can't. But the difference is we all know that about nutrition. Power is something a lot of people didn't realize they didn't have until the past 2 years.
Yeah. Everything's so weird here. It just we were talking before the show, and with COVID, I think everyone's kind of done with the masks a little bit, but it's so weird. You go into a restaurant and they, some of these restaurants, the corporate ones, like the big ones, they make you wear a mask until you walk to the table, and then you could take off your mask. And so,
Well, you know
yeah,
why? That's
why?
because the food drives away the COVID.
I don't get it. Like there's like over 100 people in the restaurant, and it's fairly compact, and no one has masks. So I don't get it. It
Well,
just
see,
doesn't make any sense.
it's not about sense. It's about bondage and discipline, dominance and submission.
Yeah.
We obey and we bark like dogs because we're told to. And that's why I don't want to hear about structures of power anymore. I don't want to hear about critical race theory or intersectionality. Instead of trying to peddle that crap, go explain to me why it is we have no control at all over our lives in the immediate, in the here and now. I don't want to hear about terrible stuff 200 years ago. I want to hear about now. And if you're not willing to challenge the authorities now, don't whine at me about 2 centuries ago.
Yeah.
Or 3.
So.
But on a happier note.
Yeah.
There is a happier note. Today in real time is Saturday, the 5th of February, 2002. Sorry, 2022. Just lost 2 decades there. It's okay. But tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, Sunday, the 6th of February, is the platinum Jubilee of Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Northern Ireland, and for Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories beyond the seas, Queen, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, albeit the Anglican faith.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is her 70th anniversary that she became queen. 70 years. She'd already been queen 9 years when I was born. She's the only queen I've ever known. Well, that's not entirely true. There was some in the archdiocese. Well, anyhow, never mind. Point is that it is a great milestone. Whatever you think of the monarchy, it is a great milestone in the life of Great Britain, the Commonwealth, the English-speaking world.
This is an impossible question for you, but your Defender of the Faith title for Queen Elizabeth made me think of this. Who is the who is a non-religious that would be closest to that title of Defender of the Faith, currently existing, a person?
Pope Francis. No. What? What? He just said that those who renounce the faith and persecute it are members of the church. But no, seriously, what? I don't understand the question.
So Queen Elizabeth is the Defender of the Faith but for the Anglican Church. So who would be closest to that sort of position, but for the Catholic Church?
Well, actually, it's a Catholic title. And Henry VIII was given it for his book, The Defense of the Seventh Sacrament, which he wrote against Martin Luther. And when he broke with the church, he decided to make it a hereditary title for himself and his descendants. But originally it was a papal title.
Hmm. So, but I mean, does anyone have is there any monarch who might have that?
Today,
Yeah,
living today,
like yeah, like Catholic.
who's that devout? I would say it'd be a toss-up between the Grand Duke of Luxembourg and the Prince of Liechtenstein.
Wow. Which country is bigger?
Luxembourg.
Hmm.
And the Grand Duke's defense of the faith resulted in his losing the power to veto bills. So it wasn't a successful defense. The only one who successfully defended the faith was the Prince of Liechtenstein, who said no abortion. He got into a fight with Parliament, and he threw the referendum to the people, saying, either I get the right to do what I like, in which case I stay, or you guys can do whatever you want, but I leave and take all my money with me.
Who was What line did your Star Spangled Crown King come from?
Did my what?
Your Star Spangled Crown King.
Well, it was Lichtenberg.
Oh, Lichtenberg. Oh. Okay. That's why I got confused, because you just merged them. Okay.
Well, it was more Liechtenstein than Luxembourg, but
Okay.
and also the title had been used in a previous movie called Call Me Madam with Ethel Merman.
Ah.
So the joke in the book is that the Grand Duchy of Liechtenberg in the book is the same as the one that Ethel Merman's character is sent as ambassadress to by Harry Truman, where her character says to the Grand Duchess, "Oh, so you're a Grand Duchess? My grandmother was Dutch."
Nice. All right.
What?
All right.
So what are you inviting Harry and Meghan to the Temple House Tower for a platinum Jubilee party?
No, they are not on my list of people to
What?
celebrate with. Yeah.
Why? You don't like redheads?
Is Megan redhead?
No, Harry is.
Oh, Harry. Yeah. I mean, I never think of Harry as a redhead. I don't know.
Ginger, is that better?
There we go. No. Sorry.
So you don't like them?
I'm not friends with them.
You dislike all your non-friends.
I don't dislike them. We're not acquaintances.
Well, you have that attitude. You'll never get acquainted. You should send them an invitation.
Why don't you send them an invitation, Charles?
I'm not throwing a party, and I don't have the Temple House Tower at my disposal.
Send them an invite to one of your COVID parties.
Yeah, I could invite them to a girly COVID party, and then they could catch it, and they'd be free for the next 6 months. See, my problem is I got it too soon.
That's right.
And my freedom ran out, and now I'm stuck as an Untermensch.
Your freedom
And the
ran
funny
out.
thing is, I even going to COVID parties probably isn't going to help me, because everyone I know who's had it twice had it way back at the beginning. That is, the people who've had it and got and got COVID now. There are people who got the COVID way back in 2020 at the beginning of the thing. I only got it in last May.
Yeah.
In 2021. So, despite what they say, it's probably going to keep me covered for a year, which is terrible if they're going to keep the subhuman categories open for the unvaccinated.
Yeah. It's rough being subhuman.
Yeah, I know. I know better than most. However, I do like to rub it into people here. I'll go up and I'll I'll say, I know I can't go in because I'm an Untermensch kind infant. I haven't been vaccinated, so I know I'm an Untermensch. Oh, please, sir, please don't say that. No, it's all right. My grandparents have told me all about what Austria was like then. No, sir, please don't talk that way. No,
Wow.
I understand your chancellor has said infant macht, which is like Arbeit macht frei. We've heard that before. We understand. No, don't say that. No, but that was your chancellor saying it, and I don't. I'm not upset by that. I realize it's an old tradition. It's okay. And they get very apologetic, but they never seem to be the slightest bit comforted. I'm trying to reassure them that it's okay, and they never seem to feel reassured.
Sad. It's rough
I'm
life.
trying to help.
All right. So you're under the weather. We've got Grumpy Charles, who's,
I thought it was Saturnine.
well, Saturnine and Grumpy's pretty similar. But okay.
Lumpy and bumpy, honey.
All right. Move your camera so we can see more than your. There we
I don't
go.
know. I kind of like that view. I mean, how about let's go for an art view? What do you think?
Whoa,
How's this?
I'm gonna be sick.
You like that? After the turn of the century and the clear blue skies over Germany, Charles versus the Red Baron.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
You didn't like the turnabout?
It was, yeah, it made me nauseous.
No.
All right. I know how to make you feel better, Charles.
How do you gonna make me feel better?
Superfan Daniel has sent in a lightning round of sorts for
Oh
you.
boy. No meme of production?
No memes of production, just straight to a lightning round. It's been a while, and it's very popular. So, so this is a little bit of different. This is a kind of a different lightning round. Where previous lightning rounds, sort of, someone would say something like Oliver Cromwell, and then you say in one word what you think about. In this one, you have to choose one or the other. What you either like the most or dislike the least. Okay.
All right. Sure.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Nice. Gosh, this is going to be brutal. This is really going to be brutal. Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris?
You know,
for our radio audience, Charles is just face palming right now.
okay. When I was in college, we had a game we called Death is Not an Option. And you would be presented with two chicks' names. There was several of them, like a lightning round. Death is not an option. You have to choose which one you would date. And death is not an option. So you've only got the two. All right. Well, I guess I'll have to go with Kamala Harris. She's younger and not as disgusting.
Wow. Wow.
And she doesn't seem as crazy.
Wow. Okay.
See, that was the setup, though. He lures me in with Coke or Pepsi. I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be good, and then boom.
Yeah, that was a brutal one. Good job, Daniel.
Very uncool. I'm hurt. What's next?
All right, Ford or GM?
Ford.
St. Louis Pizza or Chicago?
St. Louis.
What's St. Louis pizza like? I've never heard of that one before.
Different from Chicago.
Okay.
Also, it doesn't have a crazy mayoress.
What about New York pizza or Chicago pizza?
New York.
Oh, okay.
How about Chicago pizza versus Montana pizza? Chicago.
No, okay. Yeah, there we go. Well, this is an easy one. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Jimmy Hoffa or Al Capone?
Al Capone.
Wait, what?
Al Capone.
Over Jimmy
You're
Hoffa?
Oh, easily.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can explain that.
Please do so.
Well, apart from the fact that your great uncle had an affection for Al that he never had for Jimmy, quite apart
Okay.
from that, the he says, I remember your great uncle saying to me, the thing about Al, he didn't mind doing his own dirty work. You show me a capo who's not wanting to get his hands dirty, and I'll show you a coward. That was how he felt. Anyhow, seriously, I read a interview with Al Capone in Liberty Magazine, of all things, but he was still alive and in prison. And it was called "How Al Capone Would Run This Country." And, he was actually very conservative, very concerned about the education of the young and so on. So Al Capone.
Okay. Oliver Cromwell or Maximilian Robespierre?
Oh,
That's like a Hillary or Kamala question.
yeah, it is. Well, I'll go with Cromwell.
Okay. St. Louis or Blessed Carl?
Oh, that's worse for the other reason. Well, I'll go with Blessed Carl because I know him better.
This is a stupid one. France or Italy?
Oh, don't be ridiculous. Poland.
Oh. Okay. That's good. That's very diplomatic of you. Pope Francis or Pope Honorius?
Pope Honorius.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Wow. That's kind of that's a little surprising.
I drink a lot of both, so
yeah. Okay. Mao Zedong or Vladimir Lenin?
Vladimir Lenin, he killed fewer people.
Yeah. Was that just due to less opportunity?
Probably.
Were you saying that on the show the other day?
Yeah, it's probably lesser opportunity, but still.
Yellowstone or Yosemite?
Yellowstone. Although I like them both. Old Faithful is just, that's just too bloody neat. The Devil's Paid Pots, and come on.
Right.
No, I love the Owani Lodge. I've gotten drunk there. Yosemite's nice.
Theodore Roosevelt or Howard Taft? It's kind of an unusual one.
Theodore Roosevelt, easy.
What was Taft's competition in that one? Like, what is underneath that one?
Well, he was more of an establishment figure than Roosevelt. He had actually been Roosevelt's protege. They had a falling out.
Latin or Greek?
Latin. Although I'm studying Greek right now, so I'm in a better position.
Paisley or tie-dye?
Paisley.
Steak or salmon?
Steak.
Thomas Jefferson or Andrew Jackson?
Andrew Jackson.
I had a feeling on that one. Yeah. This is actually the worst one. Actually, I feel bad for you on this one, and I'm not going to make you answer it because you die either way.
What is it?
It just depends by whose hand. Vinny or his beautiful bride?
Their new puppy, Lawrence, that they just bought, is a Pekingese wolfhound.
Yes. Very good, Charles. Very good answer for that one.
Yeah,
Your survival skills are off the charts right now. All right.
I know.
um, uh, Carl or Blessed Charlemagne? Ooh.
That is tough. But I'm going to go with Blessed Carl again, just because I know more about him, in a more contemporary manner.
Wow.
Even though Charlemagne was for both of us our name day.
Last one. Oswald Dupree or Big Almond?
Big Almond.
You sellout. You absolute sellout.
Yeah. I go with Big Almond any day over Oswald. I mean, look, Oswald's a no talent bum. He's a petty Annie grifter. Big Almond have the whole world utterly snowed.
All right, so be it. All right.
I mean, even Tumbler House doesn't dare cross Big Almond.
It's true.
See? Most people don't even know it exists. You guys won't even cross it. And you're wondering which of the two I'd go for.
All right, enough shenanigans. Time for the serious stuff. Time for the questions. Okay.
All right, fine. Be that way. I don't care.
Weenie Central over here.
Yes, indeed. This is Weenie Central. Come in. I don't feel very good about much of anything. Oh, we understand completely.
All right. Another question from Daniel who says, would Charles please be willing to pull up a list of all the ecumenical councils and give a 1 or 2 sentence summary of each one's importance and impact? If he is, please ask him to do so. Charles, are you willing to do this?
I am.
Would you please do so?
All right. Ecumenical Councils. All right. We're going to do this real quick, gang. We're going to ride. Okay. First Council of Nicaea, 325, repudiated Arianism. It gave us did a number of other things, but the most important thing about it is that it defined that Christ is of the same substance with the Father, rather than any other formulation. And that was the beginning of the Nicene Creed. The creed would be perfected at the First Council of Constantinople in 381, and revised the Nicene Creed regarding the Holy Spirit. Council of Ephesus, 431, repudiated Nestorianism. The Council of Chalcedon in 451 repudiated Monophysitism. The Second Council of Constantinople repudiated the 3 chapters, which were documents. They condemned Origenism. The Third Council of Constantinople, 680 to 681, repudiated monolithicism, which Honorius, the Pope Honorius, had kind of stood up for. The Second Council of Nicaea, 787, condemned iconoclasm. The Fourth Council of Constantinople deposed Patriarch Photius and reinstated his predecessor, St. Sergius. The First Council of Lateran, 1123, addressed the investiture controversy of the Holy Roman Emperor. The Lateran II, reaffirmed in 1139, reaffirmed Lateran I, and dealt with the question of clerical marriage and things like that. Lateran III, 1179, restricted papal election of the cardinals, condemned simony, and introduced minimum years for ordination, 30 for the bishops. Defined transubstantiation and addressed a number of other things. Then the First Council of Lyon, 1245, deposed Emperor Frederick II. Stupor Mundi. Lyon II, in 1274, attempted a reunion with the Eastern churches, approved the Franciscans and Dominican orders, and the conclave. The Council of Vienne, 1311 to 1312, disbanded the Knights Templar. Well, after that, there wasn't another council for a century. The Council of Constance, 1414 to 1418, called by Emperor Sigismund, resolved the Great Western Schism and condemned Jan Hus. Now it gets a little bit wiggy because you have what was called the Council of Basel, Ferrara, and Florence, 1431 to 1445. It moved those three towns.
Because of the plague, right?
Yeah. It addressed church reform and reunion with the Eastern churches, split into two parties. But the fathers at Florence reunited with Eastern Orthodoxy. Although that union would be denounced by Patriarch Gennadios II in 1462 at the order of Mehmed the Conqueror. Lateran V, 1512 to 1517, addressed church reform, and it was a dead letter.
Wait, what? What does that mean?
It means that they passed all sorts of regulations, none of which were ever really imposed.
Oh.
Lateran V, 1512 to 1517. There's Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, which dealt with just about everything. And then Vatican I, 1869 to 70, defined infallibility. And Vatican II, 1962 to 1965, didn't define anything, but talked about various pastoral and disciplinary things. Although, according to the Pope who called it, John the 23rd, the one who closed it, Paul the 6th, it did not, its deliberations were not protected by infallibility.
You know what I noticed from that list is you've got councils that rise up out of a desperate need in the church. You know, where something is pervasive, it's harmful. It's okay. We need to call a council. We need to handle this. You know, and you have the Council of Trent. It looks like that happened obviously after the Protestant Reformation. You need to shore a lot of things up. Let's do, let's cover a lot of things. So that leads me to a question. A speculative question. Do you think there will be a council that happens in that manner to tackle a lot of the problems in the church?
Franciscanism? Yeah, probably. Sometime, Vatican III will convene at some point, sometime, to address all of the chaos and garbage. When Ricardo McIntyre went to Vatican II, he went with the express purpose of getting a definition on limbo.
Huh. Well, okay, why do you say that?
Because he did. He told me.
Well, I know, but so he didn't get it, right?
Well, they were busy, doing everything else. They weren't interested in doctrine. So that never came up. Now, there are a number of other doctrinal issues that people have talked about as fodder for a council, to include Our Lady's titles as Mediatrix of all graces and Co-Redemptrix, which is something else a future council might look at.
Okay. It seems like when the church wants to do stuff now, we don't call a big council. They're like smaller happenings.
Well, we just talk all over the place out of both of our mouths.
Yeah.
But one day there'll be clarity again. Right now, we just sort of,
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that, Charles. Jeff says, I'm curious about the history of the marriage annulment process in the Catholic Church. With the condemnation of divorce by Jesus, I'm guessing that at least some Jews converting to Christianity must have questioned the teaching, as it was legal for a Jew to obtain a divorce. This must have caused heartache for many couples, where one wished to convert and the other was opposed, and as such, the two felt they could no longer continue their lives together. It seems that this line of questioning must have been the reason for the development of the doctrine of the Petrine and Pauline privileges very early in the church.
Yes.
How did it proceed from there to where we are today?
Well, basically, it proceeded from the development of sacramental theology. Because you got to remember that an annulment is not Catholic divorce, even if Kennedys could buy them. An annulment is the church's declaration that the sacrament of marriage was invalid. Now, the question of the validity of any sacrament boils down to matter, form, and intent. If you don't have the right form, you don't have the right matter, you don't have the right intent, you don't have a sacrament. So, setting aside the question of form, which is generally done, the matter of the sacrament of marriage is the couple. So, were either of them free to marry or not free to marry? They both have to be free to marry. And there could be various grounds to presume that they were not able to marry validly, but in terms of who they were. The second is intention, and in this case, it's to lead a Catholic marriage. So, do they intend to do that? Well, today that becomes rarer and rarer. We're not going to have kids, or we'll contracept until we're ready for children. There are all kinds of a prenup can often be a killer, because you're already presuming you're going to divorce. The one side or the other concealing a fact that had the other know they wouldn't have married him. But it has to be a pre-existing fact. In other words, let's say that by DNA I'm 2% Jewish. Now, let's say I was going to marry a chick who was so anti-Semitic that if she knew that I had a drop of anti-Semitic blood, she wouldn't marry me. And I know that, and I purposely keep the DNA reading from her. Well, she finds out a year into the marriage that she married a 2% Jew. If she had known that, she would never have married me. So then the question becomes, all right, well, those are possible grounds for an invalid sacrament. But how do you go from the possibility to the reality? Well, the church court system is what deals with that. And so an annulment process is very much like a court trial, with the marriage itself as the defendant. And of course, it's presumed innocent, that is valid, until proved invalid. Interestingly enough, though, In many places, in America especially, marriage for a long time, marriages, annulments were about the only thing the church courts did. And it wasn't until the 1970s when there were so many flagrant violations of lay rights by the reforming clerics that a man in St. Louis by the name of, who founded the St. Joseph Foundation, I know his name was Louis Mayon, he was a great friend of mine, he just died. Oh, this is embarrassing. Anyway, he founded the St. Louis, the St. Joseph Foundation, and they used the church court system to help people fight canonical violations of their rights. But because this hadn't been done in a long time, in the beginning, it was really difficult. Because, the court of first instance in the church is your bishop. Now, if it's your bishop or one of his priests who's guilty of the, say, liturgical malfeasance that you're fighting, your court of first instance is often the malefactor himself. So it has to, you have to appeal to a higher court because they'll always find in favor of themselves.
I see. All right. Superfan Anita says, "Greetings, gentlemen, and I wish you a blessed and glazed donut-filled Candlemas."
Oh.
With Charles...
Do I have a glazed donut?
No. I had donuts today, though, actually. I had chocolate donuts.
Could I have one now?
You have one now?
May I have one now? Please, no. Would you give me one?
No, I would not.
Oh, yeah, I see how you are. First, you're not going to invite Megan and Harry to your party tomorrow. And now I don't get any glazed donuts. I see what you're doing. This is a very slippery slope you're on. I'd be careful.
What's next?
I don't know. That's what I'm worried about. It's such a weird and random slippery slope. Maybe we'll start watching Bambi nonstop. Binge watching Bambi. That could be next.
Wow. Yeah, maybe.
See? See?
Yeah, see, okay.
That appealed to you, didn't it? I saw you there. Yeah, binge watching Bambi. Sounds good. I'm warning you, pal. See, it starts by snubbing royals. Then you end up abusing employees. And the next thing you know, binge watching old Bambi cartoons. You've been warned. This is all on your head. You know now, all right? You can't say, "Oh, I didn't know, nobody told me." You've been warned.
What was your adjective last episode? It sounds like a continuation of that. Whoa, nebulous. Very nebulous, very all over the place.
What do you mean? I made a very specific, I've given you a very specific warning.
All right, anyhow.
What?
Sorry, I'm just in the middle of making a mistake. Don't argue with crazy people. All right. This is a rule I try to live by. It's very important because it makes you a happier person, and I'm not living by this rule right now. All right.
I don't understand.
I know. It's okay. Confusion is the guardian of truth, Charles. Just embrace it.
That's true. I can't argue with that.
All right. Let's get to Anita's question. She says, so glaze-filled donut Candlemas. Would Charles please discuss Benito Mussolini? I understand from a native of Italy that Mussolini, for all his faults, was an honest man, that he never exploited his office for personal gain, that he rendered great services to the Catholic Church, that he was murdered and strung up by the communists and not by an irate populace, that the Italians still honor his memory and pray for the repose of his soul. This was news to me because, of course, in the United States, we've been taught to believe that Mussolini was basically a miniature yet relatively incompetent Hitler who colluded with the Nazis and massacred the Ethiopians out of a lust for conquest. What does Charles think? Is the narrative about Benito Mussolini one more thing we need to be red-pilled about in the red-pilled decade that is the 2020s?
Well,
Ooh.
partly, maybe a pig pill in this case. Um, Mussolini started out as a left winger. He came from a socialist family. That's why he was named Benito instead of Benedetto. Benito was Spanish. It was named for Benito Juarez. If the Italian version is Benedetto. So he had been a socialist, but he broke with them over their opposition to Italy going into World War One. He was in the beginning anti-clerical and Republican, but when he realized that to run Italy, you'd have to make a deal with both the king and the church. He did. Uh, the king appointed him prime minister of Italy in 1922. He began the transformation of Italy into the fascist state shortly thereafter. He certainly helped the church with the Lateran Treaty. But if you want to know what was wrong with fascism, read Pius XI's encyclical Non abbiamo bisogno. Non abbiamo bisogno. It's an encyclical against Italian fascism by Pope Pius XI. Having said that, however, by the same token, when he was overthrown by the king, and the king switched sides to join the Allies, he was rescued by the Germans, and they put him in charge of what was called the Italian Social Republic in northern Italy. And that was where fascism came into its own without having to pay attention either to the monarchy or to the church. But Cardinal Schuster certainly prayed, who's a blessed and a very saintly man, certainly prayed very hard for Mussolini's return to the church and spoke to him about it. It is also true that he was murdered by the communists and not by anybody else. So the other thing you've got to bear in mind too is that before he broke with the West over Ethiopia, he had done tremendous work for Austria in rushing to the country's defense when Dollfuss was murdered by the Nazis in 1934, and that he kept Italy out of the Depression. His fascism, although you won't see too many people admit, was an important model for our very own homegrown Mussolini, Franklin Roosevelt.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, what more do you want?
Okay, just gonna drop a bomb in there on FDR. That's fine.
Well, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. FDR himself expressed admiration for Mussolini in his early days. But as I say, from 1933 until 1936, Churchill and Roosevelt and all those guys had nothing but praise for Mussolini.
Okay, so all right. Well, we'll just leave it at that for that question.
Well, I don't know what more you want out of me. What are you looking for? You seem unsatisfied, as though someone hadn't let you watch Bambi.
All right. It's okay, Charles. I don't need to be satisfied on it. All matters.
Would you like to watch Bambi?
All right. Question from GM, who says, Dear Vincent and Charles, longtime listener caller, I decided to become the first on my block to order Puritan's Empire, brick included.
Ooh, gala brick. Wrapped with ribbons.
Yes. We're all about style here. The tales of early European contact with the Americas are fascinating, especially when considering the prophecy of Blessed Raymond Lully, delivered to Columbus's ancestor about the lands beyond the sea in need of missionaries. Would Charles please delve into this episode and the life of Blessed Raymond more generally? I've heard of North African monks having possible refuge in North America after the Vandal conquests. Do you think that these are connected or merely coincidental. Similarly, the finding of Roman coinage on the banks of the Ohio seems like something worth investigating. Can Charles recommend any further reading? And if so, please do. This seems like a prime opportunity for history and historical fiction. Thanks for the show, and please keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Well, there's a lot there. Of course, Blessed Raymond Lully was all about missionary work, and he wrote a novel called Blanquerna, in which he advocated the setting up of missionary communities. One of his great fans was St. Junipero Serra, who taught Lullist philosophy at the University of Palma in Mallorca, who later went to the New World and, as we know, put the formula that Lull advocated in Blanquerna, pardon me, into the missions that he founded in the Sierra Gorda in central Mexico and then in California. The question of pre-Columbian arrivals on the continent is actually quite fascinating. Two books come to mind. One is called They All Discovered America, and the other was a kid's book about the supposed voyage of Prince Madoc of Wales to America. It's called Brave His Soul. Now the question about the Roman coins, all sorts of possibilities open up. Could it have actually been Romans? Or could it have been early medievals, say Welsh or whomever, Irish, who brought Roman coins to the banks of the Ohio? Who knows?
All right, last question for today is from Mary Beth, who says, "Hello, Charles and Vinny. A joyous New Year's to you both. I have a question for Charles that I hope he can give some serious consideration to, as it has baffled me for as long as I can remember. One of the stranger matters of being alive in the form of fallen man, it seems, is the aspect of time. The linear way in which our lives must be lived can be, at least for those who think about such matters, a source of great sadness, as all material is corruptible. We all grow and grow old, and become different while staying the same in many important ways, some of which are no longer reflected physically. The circumstances of our lives are often changed so profoundly, but even the slight ways can amount to a great deal when, for example, one looks back at old photographs, even from only a few years back, and remembers. I was born in 1970, though I don't necessarily think that the experience I base my question on is unique to my generation. So, my question is this: why are so few people nostalgic in the true sense? Why do so few genuinely and deeply miss the old ways and the old people, especially those who filled the days of their formative years? Why are they largely unaware of and unfeeling towards this loss? I don't believe rational creatures, that's us, are meant for change at all, as I would define change not in terms of addition, but always in terms of subtraction. We are forever moving away from in this life. And although thoughts of heaven really only need to be filled with thoughts on the mystery that is the beatific vision, it is still a comfort to envision that eternal present. Living here within those confines of time, the idea that our Catholic faith can lead us to right that particular wrong forever after fills me with great hope in this great longing. I know this was a long one, so any thoughts or comments on any aspect of my question are very much appreciated. Thank you, and be assured of my family's prayers for you both." Thank you, Mary Beth.
Yes, indeed. Well, there's several things there to chew on. The one is that I don't think it's quite right to say that we're not meant to change at all. Quite the contrary. We come into this world as part of fallen humanity. It requires baptism to change us, to make us a new creature, part of redeemed humanity, which is a whole different kettle of fish from fallen humanity. So that's one change each of us has to make if we want to make it to heaven. The second is that you do have a big piece of the picture there, in that one of the more annoying things about life is change, not having here an abiding city. But only in heaven can you escape that kind of change. As for nostalgia and all that, well, I don't know. I certainly miss the people that I grew up with who are all dead. Uh, I think a lot depends upon your particular situation, where you were, what you grew up with. Uh, it's also interesting over the course of your life. Uh, there was an interesting thing I saw recently by someone of my generation, a boomer, who said, "I just realized that there's as much time between 1918 and 1970 as there is between 1970 and the present." That is huge if you were born in 1960 or you're older, because they're like, what? What? I'm a great uncle now. All my great uncles were World War One vets.
Hmm.
That's a very strange feeling. But I do think, though, I know what you mean, in the sense that there aren't that many people who seem to miss the circumstances of their upbringing, of the world that they went into. I think that says a lot about their upbringing and the world they were born into, that they don't miss it.
It's a really good discussion, Mary Beth. I have several things here. You touch this really deep question. Um, Number one, in terms of change, you're always being downward. I do remember a holy priest giving a sermon. I think it's a holy, or it could be a saint. I can't remember, but I remember the point was made that Mary's love of Jesus was not the same. It changed from when her the beginning of her encounter with Jesus to the end. It grew constantly. Her love grew. So I feel like that's an example of change being good and a huge opportunity. Um, and in terms of time, being trapped in time, um, I always wonder about that time. Reconciling time with eternity too, because you wonder how that's going to go. The resurrection of the body to me involves matter and therefore involves time. Like paradise, to me, that was operating within time on some level. Like things, you're being a steward of creation. So I don't know. That's where my mind goes in terms of all that. So I always wonder about those things. In terms of nostalgia, I was talking with Charles about this off the show because it seems like nostalgia is outlawed, especially in our society, almost because, and there's so many reasons, right? Because one, it's a political ploy that the future is always going to be better than the past, but that's a deception, and that's a deception that a lot of people fall into. I think that's part of the reason. Um, and but the other reason is just it relates to hope. I think people always want hope that things can be better. Um, and I had one more thought attached to the nostalgia thing. But I don't know. People always want something that's new. There's always a new little flair or something that people are trying to chase after. Um,
Well, and also, though, bear in mind, what you said earlier just a moment ago about nostalgia being almost outlawed. Remember that the moral standards of 1922 were not very different from those of 1822 or 1722 or 1622
hmm.
or 1522 or 1422 or 1322 or 1222 or 1122, and on and on and on. In the past 100 years, in fact, 100 years my eye, in the past 50 years, we have made ourselves totally different from what we were. And so if you get too nostalgic, you automatically become an enemy of the state and an opponent of the Holy Father.
But I think
You become a rigid pervert.
I think the nostalgia, I think in a sense you're right, where it doesn't necessarily manifest into nostalgia. I think nostalgia manifests into different ways. For example, getting into thoughts and activities that involve things we're not, like fantasy literature, right? That's something that we're not, and that's sort of bound up with returning to a different sort of mental space. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do have things like that, historical reenactments of all kind. The Renaissance fair, uh, the for that matter, any kind of folk activity is by definition, you know, if you're in any sort of folk dancing or custom, you are by definition, uh, although it's contemporary, you're nevertheless connecting to a folk tradition that predates what we have now. Uh, I mean, it's one reason living in the now is, you know, I was thinking about this too. There was when I was a boy in Los Angeles, there was a television program called Rap with Rabbi Mike. Now, for reasons that didn't concern us, I was reminded of this morning, and I wanted to find out what had happened to Rabbi Mike. Well, interesting story. Now, after reading, an article about him, when he talked about how people go to church or synagogue for comfort, what they need is to be challenged, and all this. And he was a long-haired guy, no very, very with it, etc. Well, he was rabbi of this congregation in the San Fernando Valley for from 1970 to 70, yeah, to 1983, and it was very, very big when he left. He went back east where he's from and pursued an academic career. What's that that congregation, a later rabbi they had, committed suicide. And so they were not very happy. And in 2013, they brought Rabbi Mike back. And by that time, they had dwindled from the 700 they had been at his time to 470. So he went back into doing what he had always done. And 70 families left. And there was a lot of dissension. And his contract wasn't renewed. So I thought about this. And I thought, and about the complaints that were made about him. And I said, you know, it really is not that different from our priests with this guy. The difference being that, of course, our churches can't hire and fire their ministers, their priests. But that he was trying to do the same kind of stuff he had done in the 60s, hour and a half long sermons about social justice, when what they wanted to do was sing and enjoy the liturgy. He had put that down back in the 60s as the desire for comfort. It hit me. It's not what it is. It's a desire for transcendence. At his first go round, he was popular because then everybody in the congregation was his age, and what he found, quote unquote, relevant, they found relevant.
Yeah.
But the problem with being relevant to today is that that's a constantly moving target. You can never stay relevant for any great length of time. Nothing ages more quickly or worse than the latest thing. You know, in 10 years, it'll look grotesque, whatever it is. That's why I've always followed my father's advice, and my ties are neither fat nor thin, like my lapels. Never quite in style, but never quite out of it either. And then every now and then, they are absolutely what people are wearing.
Yeah, I really thank you for this question, Mary Beth, because I think it's got the wheels of my mind turning and thinking new things. And now I'm reflecting back to something Charles said. It was either last show or 2 shows ago, but Charles was talking about Orson Welles and his favorite character of Falwell. And Orson
Falstaff, yeah.
Welles' revelation to me that he was obsessed with loss of innocence.
Yeah.
And it jumped out to me when you said that because, I've watched a lot of Orson Welles movies. And when you say obsession with loss of innocence, it's like, wow, that's actually what's underneath all of his big movies.
Yeah.
Touch of Evil, Third Man, obviously Citizen Kane. It's right there. And and so connecting this to nostalgia, if any three of those Orson Welles characters actually dwelt on nostalgia, they would actually be better people for it.
That's
to
true.
retrace themselves to this innocent time, this time where they were actually happier and they were more innocent and obviously more moral, right? And so you can trace, actually, I think, a lack of nostalgia to a lack of morality, in a sense,
Yeah.
in that sense.
In that sense, and of course, Harry Lime, in his great disquisition going on about, I mean, this was a man who lived in the moment,
Yeah.
and yet his reaching out to his old school chum nevertheless showed a desire on some level.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure he knew tons of other people.
Yeah.
Why did he reach out to his old pal,
Yeah.
to Holly Martins?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So.
And Holly, you see, if he could convince Holly that he was right, he could convince himself.
That's interesting. You're talking about at the end. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
Well, then there's this real great twist ending, and believe me, folks, if you could see this in the theater, your mind would explode. But you wouldn't want to know the fact that at the very end, what happens is that.
Yeah, but no, Charles is talking about the third man.
Yeah.
So.
Who's always on my mind here in Vienna, I can tell you. Whenever I go to the Cafe Mozart, I'm waiting to see the Baron with a little dachshund.
Yeah.
It's amazing what we're forced to do these days.
All right. So that was a good question to end on.
Yeah. Well, we're not quite finished yet.
No.
You still haven't explained adequately. You're boycotting Harry and Meghan.
I mean, is it boycotting? It's just, I'm just not worthy enough, right? It's
Ooh.
just, I just.
Ooh. Faux modesty. Well played. Well played. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm a bit tired myself.
Yes.
But before we call it a night, in honor of tomorrow's Platinum Jubilee, are you ready? Can you dig it?
Yeah. Okay. Wait, what?
God Save the Queen.
God Save the Queen. Okay.
All right, you ready?
You go ahead, Charles.
All right. God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. God save the Queen, send her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the Queen. Long life and many more years, Your Majesty.
Very nice.
And that from a Jacobite.
Yes. All right, that'll do it for this
Well,
yeah.
I'd rather it was Franz von Bayern sitting on her throne. on his throne, which she's sitting on. But he's not going after it, so things being what they are, better Betsy Windsor than President Johnson.
There we go. That's what I always say.
Really?
No.
Gosh, I've never heard you say that before. I've heard you say many things. I've heard you say that. All right.
All right. That'll do it for this episode. If you want to send Charles a question, please become a patron. We've been asking exclusively patron questions. So for as low as $5 a month, get your questions asked, get early access, and then get access to the pre-show. We had a great pre-show this week. So
It's true.
Sign up and you can enjoy all the pre-shows. All right. So, yeah, Charles and I are done for the week. Remember, if it's Monday,
it's off the menu.
And the soul you save
may be your own.
See you, guys.
God bless you all.